Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips.
Hello everybody and welcome to Unlocking Your Truth. My name is Dr. Leslie Phillips and I will be your host for the next hour in the studio with Corey. Hello. And if you're a regular listener, you will know that we focus on metaphysics and spirituality in this show. We love to talk about everything in that realm, and every week we have a different discussion topic. And we also open the lines so you can share your opinions and ask your questions. Now, the phone number for you to call if you want to join in the conversation is 604-504-7441, extension 4142. And you can also write your questions to info@drlesliephillips.com. And of course, you are listening live on CIVL across the Fraser Valley on 101.7 FM, and you can also live stream us on civl.ca. Well, we've got a great topic this evening, and we've actually got a guest, an expert guest who is going to help us wend our way through this topic. And it's one that's close to my heart, and I really think we will probably struggle to find an episode of this show where we didn't touch on this at some point. How to clear self-limiting beliefs and behaviors, and how to create the life that you want. Because as you know, I'm always saying this, you create your reality, so everything starts and ends with you. That's good news. If you create your own reality and you can let go of self-limiting beliefs, then the sky is the limit. So we have a great guest on the show this evening who really is an expert in this realm. His name is Scott Schmaran, and he is a, wait for it, performanceologist, a neuroperformanceologist. And he's a speaker and a coach and an author, and he spent 20 years learning powerful success technologies, and he's used what he's learned to transform his life. He actually lost 180 pounds in weight and maintained it afterwards and rediscovered his vitality. And his story was so famous, he actually appeared on Oprah, and he appears regularly on the Howard Stern show, and he's also been on Coast to Coast and many other really well-known shows. So it's a real pleasure for us to have Scott on the show this evening, and we can't wait to dig in and ask him all sorts of questions. And he's also written a book, and the book is called Stepping Stones to Success, which he co-authored with Jack Canfield and Deepak Chopra. And the modalities that he covers include hypnotherapy, neuro-linguistic programming, silver mind development technique, and emotional freedom technique. Scott, hello, welcome to the show.
Leslie, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're delighted to have you here, and so excited to find out more about this and to really benefit from your knowledge on this area. And I think it'd be great to find out a little bit more about your personal story to start with, and how you came to being who you are today and doing what you do.
Thank you. I think all my life, even as a small child, I always had this little voice in my head telling me I need to help people and I need to make a difference in this world. Wasn't always sure how I was going to do that. And when I was a kid, you would have noticed me. I was the fat kid, and I was teased. People made fun of me. I was bullied. And I began to spend my time withdrawing from the world, watching a lot of really bad TV programs from the 1960s and 70s, and eating. And the more I would eat, the heavier I would get. The heavier I get, the more I was teased, and I would withdraw, and this horrible cycle continued. And I would have moments and times in my life when I would lose a lot of weight and then put it back on. And it created this internal struggle. Here I was. I wasn't happy with the way I was. I wanted to change. I would start to make change. But then I would go back to where I was before. It's like there was two different people living inside of me. And I can remember times, like I remember, I was in my 20s. And I remember being invited to a New Year's Eve party, and I was really so excited to be invited to this party. And I remember going there, and there were about 50 people there. And I remember making myself a plate of food. And I remember sitting down in this wooden rocking chair. And just like a scene out of a movie, that chair broke. In fact, I crushed that chair. And so here was this little short fat guy laying on the floor with all this food laying all over him. And in that moment when the chair broke, the entire room froze. Silence. And everybody turned around. And then simultaneously, everybody began to laugh. Mm. And I guess if you're watching it, it had to be funny, but I felt so horrible and so embarrassed and so ashamed. And all I could think of is I wish I was about 2 inches tall and I could hide in the corner somewhere. And I remember putting a big fake smile on my face and trying to laugh it off. And going home, and I remember spending that New Year's Eve was really with my two best friends at that time, which was a large sausage pizza from this local pizza place and a frozen cheesecake. And I ate them all. And I was angry. I hated the world and I hated myself. I blamed everybody else for the situation I was in. And I'm real tall. I'm 5'6". At that time, I weighed 360 pounds. I had a 56-inch waist. I was almost as big around as I was tall. And that voice in my mind telling me to help people, it faded away. I lost it. And at one point, I just gave up. I literally gave up and quit on myself. And I remember having lost the desire to live. And I remember taking a bottle of sleeping pills and a bottle of painkillers. And I poured them in a paper cup. I took them into my bathroom and I put them on my bathroom counter. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror. And when I looked in the mirror, I saw nothing. And I took all the pills. And I remember taking the pills. And then I remember going and sitting in a chair. I had this chair I sat in. It was the chair I used to hide from the world. I watched TV in that chair. I ate in that chair. And I remember being terrified, but yet I almost had a sense of relief, like my life was going to end, and this horrible pain and suffering I was feeling was going to end. And I was almost like I was flipping off the world and telling them that, hey, look what I'm doing, and you can't get me anymore. And at some point I passed out. And I probably should have died. I probably took enough pills to kill an elephant. But I didn't. And I remember waking up. I had never gone to a hospital. I was still in that chair. And I remember opening my eyes and seeing the light shining through my window. And I opened my eyes and I had this tremendous sense of peace and calm. It's really not describable in words, but I thought I was dead. It was that peaceful. That's the only way I can describe it. And then I realized I was alive. And then the tears started to flow. And I realized that I must be here for a reason. There must be a reason. And in that moment I got clarity and I realized that I was responsible for my life. Not me or anybody else. Me. I was responsible for the life I had lived. I was responsible for being overweight. I was responsible for being miserable. And in that moment, I made a decision. And I got out of my chair. And I decided that I was going to find out why there were these two people inside of me. The part of me that wanted to change and the part of me that just dragged me right back to where I was before. So I started studying and reading books on the subconscious mind and on hypnosis and different modalities. And then I started taking trainings and certifications. And I started taking the commonalities of all these things and then molding them and shaping them into what made sense for me and creating my own things. And I started to work on myself. And I remember setting my first goal, which was to go out in public and not being noticed for being the fat guy, for being a monster. And I did that. And then I realized I wanted so much more. There was so much of life I missed out on. So much. And I wanted to do things that other people did that I couldn't do, like just to go on a roller coaster because I couldn't sit in the chair, or to go on adventures where, I couldn't even walk up a flight of stairs without gasping for air.
Mm.
And then slowly but surely I changed even more. And I lost and kept off 180 pounds. I am now 55 years old. I'm in incredible physical condition. I went from having a 56-inch waist to a 32-inch waist, and I am living the life of my dreams. And then that little voice came back to me saying, hello, this is your vehicle. This is what you need to do to help people and to make a difference in this world. So I chucked my real estate career, and I committed myself then now to helping others. Others not just for losing weight. Yes, that's part of it. People ask me all the time, can you help me with that? But I've helped people for so many different things, and it fuels and feeds my passion, and that's where it's led me here today with you.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. It truly is an amazing story. And, I'm curious now, what's those two people that were inside of you?
Well, I think that most people have those two people inside of them. They have the person inside of them that wants to live this glorious, wonderful life and live the life of their dreams. But every time they start to reach out for it, there's that little other person inside of them that says, wait a minute, that's not who you are. You don't want to do this. That's dangerous. You can't do that. Or that you're going to get in a lot of trouble. You better stay where you are now. And so what happens is one of two things. Either they start to make progress in what they're trying to accomplish, and then that other voice sucks them back in, or it just doesn't let them start at all.
And which is the real you?
Well, they're both, truthfully, they're both the real you. And what happens is, that part of you that wants to keep you where you are, maybe in pain or misery, we're creatures of familiarity, and we like to do what we're familiar with, even if it's something bad. We would rather choose something we're familiar with than do something different. The old saying that man's greatest need is survival is not true. The very famous psychiatrist, Virginia Satir, said, man's greatest need is familiarity, because we will choose a habit that we're familiar with, even if it will kill us, than to change. So I think they're both us. And I think that unless you become awake and aware of your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and habits, it's very hard for you to step out of that automatic response you have to changing in life to change.
Right. And I want to ask you a bit later about how you help people become awake and aware. But in the meantime, so how? Well, I guess I'm going to ask you about it now, but we can, because I know you have a whole multi-step process, don't you, for helping people?
I do.
And so maybe you can introduce us a little bit. So you did this within yourself, and you trained in different modalities, and so presumably you picked up pieces that worked for you in the different modalities, and then you started helping other people. So what did you find that works the most, or do you alter your approach depending on who you're working with?
Well, yes, it depends on who I'm working with. What I found is when I studied all these modalities, they all had a lot of commonalities. And the main commonality is they all found a way to access the subconscious mind. And once you access the subconscious mind, we think that we do almost everything consciously. But the reality is, and neuroscientists have taught us, that about 85 to 90% of what we do at a subconscious or an unconscious level. And very little of what we do consciously. So, really all change take place in the subconscious mind. And it's really not that hard to access the subconscious mind. However, it's important what you do with it once you access it. And that's what makes a difference.
Yeah, I studied a little bit of hypnosis, and hypnosis is not as woo as people think. It's just giving your subconscious an alternate way of doing something. Just give it the choice of doing it in a different way.
I agree. And I think that, the hypnotic state of mind is a natural state of mind. You're in and out of a hypnotic state all day long. For example, how many people drive to work the same way back and forth every day, and half of the time they don't remember driving to work, yet they drove there They didn't kill anybody. They may stop at every traffic light, but they really don't have any conscious recollection of getting there.
You've been to Vancouver. You've been to Vancouver.
Getting engrossed in a movie theater, and it's a great movie, and all of a sudden the entire world fades away in the background, and you become part of the movie, and 3 hours goes by, and the movie ends, and it seems like it was 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. That's a hypnotic state. So it's a natural state of mind. It's just using it, taking control of it, and using it for the benefit of yourself or somebody else.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I have a slightly different perspective on that. Because my explanation for the driving from A to B and not being conscious of what's happening is that you're actually not present in your body and not grounded in your body. Because my perspective is you are spiritual consciousness, right? And your physical body is your vehicle. Mm-hmm. And so the idea in becoming awake and aware is to be present in your body. And a lot of the time,
I agree with
people
you.
are not present in their bodies. The Googling something and being lost for 3 hours, or that classic journey to work that you just talked about. So most people are not awake and aware most of the time. They're not present most of the time, and they're not consciously directing their life.
You're correct. They're on autopilot.
Yeah,
and a
exactly.
lot of the things that they're on autopilot from are really not things that are part of it. They're not things that, there were things that were given to them. They're products of the environment they grew up in or the experiences they had, especially from when they were young kids. From the age of birth until about 4 years old, we're like sponges. Mm-hmm. And we absorb everything. In fact, we learn in the first 4 years of our life probably more than we do in the rest of the years of our life combined.
Exactly.
And so we're molded and shaped by the environment we grew up in, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, the experiences we have, all from the perspective of the child. That's why you see generation after generation, and you see in the same family the same habits. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't tell you how many times when I was a kid, I would say, I'll never say what my father says. And one day, I open my mouth, and my father's words come out. And I go, where did that come from? And that comes from our environment. And a lot of the habits, values, and beliefs, whether they're religious or socio-economical or whatever they are, come from the environment they grew up in. They're really not ours. They were given to us.
Totally.
Some are gifts, some are not so good, and they're not gifts.
Yeah.
And they have a tendency to control how we experience life, and our perceptions of life.
And so the idea is to become aware of what you're believing and what you're thinking, and where did it come from, and is it really mine?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that it's not. I don't think it's so much important where it came from. What's important is, unless you're awake and aware of your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your actions, it's really hard to change them if you're not aware of them. And so becoming aware of them gives you the ability to take control of them. Yeah. Because the moment you become awake and aware of any feelings and thoughts, they become just thoughts. And we as human beings have the ability to dismiss a thought or change a thought. But if you're not aware with what you're doing, here, let me give you an example. Years ago, I had an elderly gentleman come to me who was recommended to me by an orthopedic surgeon. He was having lower back problems, and there was really nothing they could do for him. And his back problems were caused by his huge stomach from eating too much. And in my conversation with him, he was in his 70s. He had lived in the same house for over 40 years. And so he said to me, he goes, every day I sit down at the same kitchen table I've sat at for 40 years in the same chair. And every time I sit down, I plan on eating healthy and not eating a lot. It's like almost like I blank out and I eat like a pig. And then when I'm finished, I go, what did I do? So think about this. For 40 years, every day, 2 or 3 times a day, he's been sitting at the same chair, at the same table, doing the same thing. He has now conditioned himself that his automatic response with no thought, no nothing, is he eats the way he eats. He has no control over that habit. So the easiest thing for him to do to start to become awake and aware of that is I just simply had him change chairs. So he had to sit in a different chair and have a different perspective of what was going on while he was eating. So what did that do for him? Now he had to be consciously aware of eating. He consciously had to be aware of what's going on. Does it mean he's going to make the right decision? No. It gives him choice. And it gives him the ability to make a choice again. It's like If I have you sign your name on a piece of paper, you put the pen in your hand, you sign it with very little thought, very little action. But if I tell you to put the pen in the other hand, you have to really think about it, how you're going to form those letters, see yourself shaping and forming the letters. It's a difficult task because you're consciously aware of it. And it's not something you're used to doing. So becoming awake and aware gives you the ability to make a choice and a decision.
Right. Well, fantastic. And on that note, I'm going to go to some ads. And when we come back, hopefully we can delve more deeply into some of the ways in which you help people, your formula for success. We'll be back, listeners, in a few minutes. You've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and we've been chatting with Scott Schmarin, who is a neuroperformanceologist, and we've been talking about self-limiting beliefs and behaviors and how to become consciously awake and aware and let them go so that you can create the life that you want. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie. My name is Dr. Leslie Phillips, and I am your host. And we are broadcasting live from CIVL on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley. And this evening, we have been having a fantastic discussion with our guest, Scott Schmarin, who is a neuroperformanceologist, and he helps people to let go of beliefs and behaviors that they are holding that really are not supporting their lives in terms of what they would like to create for themselves in their lives. And so welcome back after the break, Scott. And I would love to find out more about your success formula, about what you do to help somebody to make that transformation.
Well, the process I use that I developed is really pretty simple. I call it the Quatric Formula for Success. And it revolves around 4 R's. And the first R is learning to relax. In a relaxed state, all things are possible. You have access to all your creativity, all your resources, your imagination, your skills. You also open up that connection to the universe. For most people, think when they're highly stressed or under a lot of anxiety, what do? They're inducing the fight or flight syndrome, releasing a ton of cortisol and adrenaline into their system, and their thought process becomes very narrowed and doesn't allow them to access the creative part of their mind. So teaching somebody to relax is the very first step, no matter what the issue is, whether it's stress and anxiety, whether they're trying to increase their performance in sales or in athletics, or they're trying to overcome some other obstacle or challenge in their life or accomplish some other goal. The first step is always to teach them how to relax and how to access that relaxed state. From there, we move on to the next R in the Quatric Formula, which is release. In order to change, you've got to let go of all the old limiting values and beliefs that you have. Some you've been given or developed through the environment you grew up in. And those limiting values and beliefs act as very negative filters in how you perceive the world. And they also prevent you from changing. They're the things that always draw you back when you start to make changes in your life to where you were before. So you got to learn and get rid of those things and release them. Then from there, we work on the third R, which is to reprogram. Your subconscious mind is a wonderful, wonderful thing. It doesn't distinguish time, and it doesn't really distinguish between what's real and not real. So if you give it empowering images of how you want your life to be, as if it's already happening and already existing with purpose and conviction, it will start to drive towards it. It'll start to move you towards it, and if it accepts that as your truth, what happens? Your thought process starts to change, your values and beliefs begin to change, your energy changes, your habits change, your actions change, and your outcomes change. You know, when I was 360 pounds, I created this image for myself that I had a strong, healthy, lean, attractive body weighing 175 pounds or less. And I burned that image into my head, and I can't tell you exactly when it happened, but all of a sudden, I started to eat a little bit less. I started to move my body a little bit more, and I started evolving and changing slowly, but surely. My weight now does not change between 171 and 174, and I've been like that for years. It's just who I am now. And that picture I created for myself is my reality. And these pictures and these things we write out for ourselves, how we want to be, become our future reality. So the third R is to reprogram your mind. And the last R is reinforce. You've got to reinforce those changes you make. You know, you can't go to the gym, work out for a while, get in good physical shape, and then stop working out and expect you to maintain that. You've got to keep exercising your mind and driving it in the direction that you want to be in to maintain the progress you made and to continue to make further changes and evolve even greater in your life. And that's really the simple formula. It's the process. I started using that process. I don't even know that I was using that process. So when I started going through all my past clients, I realized I was following this formula. And now I've just systematized this formula, and I use it for everybody. It's different for everybody, but they still go through the same 4 phases.
Right. Because I imagine to help somebody relax, you could hypnotize them, you could teach them how to meditate, you could have them listen to relaxing music. There would be different ways to help somebody get into that relaxed state.
I use the hypnotic state for all 4 phases.
Oh, you do?
I find it's a very quick and fabulous tool to access the most powerful part of your mind, and also your subconscious mind is your connection to the universe and all the wisdom and knowledge that is out there for us to grab onto. And so I like to access the subconscious mind. I use it for everything, hypnosis. And it allows people to make change rapidly, and also for them to become, we talked about becoming awake and aware, is inducing the hypnotic state and invoking that part of their subconscious mind that allows them all of a sudden to become more aware. It's actually we call it the reticular activating system of your mind. It allows them to become aware of those things that can help them, aware of those things they need to change, aware of those things that they want, and the things around them that can help them achieve those things.
Yeah, it looks like Corey has a question.
Yes. When people come to you, I understand a little bit about hypnosis, but when people come to you, I'm pretty sure a lot of people come with the clucking chicken thought about hypnosis. How do you move them from there to understanding what hypnosis truly is?
I don't think it's that difficult. Most people have a preconceived idea. They think it's hypnosis is a man with a waving watch, and I'm taking complete and total control of their mind. And really, we have a conversation. See, the hypnotic state is anything but giving up control. It's allowing you to have complete and total control. I really describe the hypnotic state as a monofocused state of mind. You're harnessing all the power of your mind on one thing, and just let everything else fade away in the background for a while, so you can make it strong and powerful in your mind, and you can change it and make it better. And it's just never been an issue. I also share my story with people, and I think my story is very powerful because I don't really think I'm any different than anybody else. I'm not special. I'm just focused. And my opinion is if I can do it, then surely you can do it. So it's just never been an issue. And I think if you explain to people how it works, and listen, you can go on Google now. There's plenty of clinical studies that hypnosis has been used for lots of different things. And I also have some pretty incredible client stories that have great successes using it also.
Yeah, we'll get you to share some of those in a moment. One question I had, though, is, so what would you say is the difference between if there is, because maybe there isn't, a hypnotic state versus being in a state of deep meditation, for example?
There isn't.
Yeah.
There's no difference. If we hooked up a machine to your brain and we measured your brain waves, they'd be the same. The difference is, in traditional meditation, you are looking to silence the mind and get all that banter just to stop and find silence and peace. And if we hooked up brainwave monitors to you, you'd be going down into alpha and then into theta. Now, in the hypnotic state, you're doing the exact same thing, except now instead of finding silence, you're giving your subconscious mind direction and where you want it to go. Right. And that's really the only difference.
Yeah, in fact, the style of meditation I teach is akin to hypnosis because we're getting into that state, and then we're actively working with our belief systems. So it's funny, I call it meditation, I don't call it hypnosis, but it's the same, I guess. Yeah.
It sounds like it is the same.
Yeah, Corey, you have another question.
So, would I be wrong if I say that you work with people with phobias and things like that, to release phobias and pain?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Would I be wrong if I said that you work with people to release phobias and pain and things along those lines?
I have worked with people for so many things. I've worked with people for pain, phobia, addiction, some unusual things, and I've worked with people who accomplish big things. I have Olympic athlete, was one of my Olympic athletes, is a Olympic weightlifter, just set a world record in Australia a couple of months ago. I've had professional athletes. I've had business people. Sometimes just people wanting to accomplish their goals. I work with a lot of corporations, and I speak for them in helping their people really be able to make the goals they have in their business very clear and sharp in their mind.
Yeah, goals are. I used to be a sales trainer, and I found that salespeople, regardless of what they did, they would fall between 10% up or down from their goal. And even if they came out of the year at 20% of their annual goal, the next month they would just relax and they go the opposite direction. It's incredible what the mind does.
And where does that come from? Limiting values and beliefs. Yeah. I work with a lot of salespeople, and they come to me for one of two reasons. Either they get to a certain income level and they can't get over it, or they have huge success and then they crash and burn.
Yeah.
And then they start to cycle over. And why do they do that? Because they grew up in an environment that has very limiting values and beliefs about money. Maybe their parents were poor, or maybe they didn't have a lot. So they heard things like this. Money is the root of all evil. Only dishonest people make a lot of money. And when you hear that over and over as a child, so here they are as adults, they're a salesperson, they're having some success, and all of a sudden they're making what their mind is considered to be a lot of money, and then there's a little voice that creeps in and says, wait a minute, what are you doing? You're a good person, and good people just don't make money like this. So what happens? They don't hear it that way. They do exactly what you said. They start to slough off. Or maybe they buy something they really can't afford, and they get themselves in trouble, and they start to sabotage their success. And it's like a thermostat. It doesn't allow them to get too high, and if it gets too low, it allows them to kick up a little bit to that level they think that they're worth.
It's amazing. The mind is just astounding. Can you tell us a little bit about addiction?
I'm sorry?
Could you tell us a little bit about addiction?
Addiction is, from my perspective, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that would disagree with me, but addiction is a conditioned response to relieving some emotional pain. So let's say a heroin addict at some point used heroin, and they got this tremendous feeling and a release the first time they used it, maybe even the second time they used it, and it relieved something they were feeling that was so painful in their life. And then what happens is it very quickly becomes a conditioned response in how they react to things. We get a lot of people like that, whether it's shopping, drugs, alcohol, maybe pick some other poison. And what happens is it's become their mind's way of relieving something that's painful for them. They're all just symptoms of something else. They're symptoms of pain, of internal pain, of emotional pain. And what happens is we have a tendency to want to treat just the addiction part of it, which certainly needs to be addressed, but the reality is you need to treat what's deep inside of them.
Mm-hmm. So, thank you. I want to ask you a couple of questions, and really for our listeners, we have listeners writing in with questions all the time, and over thousands and thousands of questions have been able to see a pattern in what the most common things people ask about. And the number one question is some version of, why am I here? People are looking for purpose in their lives. And so I want to ask you about your perspective on that. And the second most common question is about relationships. So some version of how to be in a happy, fulfilling relationship. So I wonder what your perspective on those two things is.
Well, one, on finding your purpose. One of the key things I work with people is creating a vision of what they want in their life, as if it's already happened. And I think that people need to determine what their purpose is. And what happens is they don't have a purpose, or they've lost their purpose, or they really don't know what their purpose is because they're just going through the motions of life. They're going through the conditioned response of their life. They get up in the morning, they put their shoes and socks on the same way, they have their cup of coffee, they drive to work, they go to the same job they've been going to for 20 years, they come home, they have dinner, they watch TV, and they go to bed. Okay? And anything outside of that is scary, and so they won't move towards that. And so when you work with somebody, and that's why, getting rid of, like we talked about the second R, which is releasing, is getting rid of those limiting values and beliefs. Now your mind is open to explore what's interesting, what's exciting to you, and then creating a vision, or if you want to call it your purpose, of how you want your life to be and how you want your life to live. I mean, I always knew in the back of my mind I wanted to help people and to make a difference in this world. I had no idea how I wanted to do that. And it took me through this entire life journey of my struggles and getting to where I am today to really get me to figure that out and what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. Relationships. I think it's very difficult for somebody to have a strong, powerful, loving relationship with another human being until they learn to have that relationship with themselves. And one of the things I try to help people is to realize that they have to make themselves important. Many of my clients are moms, and they're struggling with issues in their life, and their whole life they've been sacrificing themselves for their families. And I understand that, but the reality is, unless they truly learn to take time for themselves and to learn to love themselves unconditionally, can they truly express that love to somebody else. And I believe that in order to have a fulfilling relationship with somebody else, you got to be strong in that unconditional love you have for yourself.
Oh, thank you. Now that's taken us to our next break, and perhaps when we come back from the break, we can actually ask you some real listeners' questions. So we'll be back shortly. Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie. We are live right now at CIVL on 604-504-7441, extension 4142. And we've been talking this evening to Scott Schmerin all about how to let go of, how to relax and release yourself from your limiting beliefs and reprogram your consciousness, and then maintain the changes that you've made afterwards. So we've been talking about self-transformation. And now's the time where I think what we'll do is we'll ask Scott some of your questions.
I have a couple here for him.
Yeah.
He might be able to answer. I mean, they were directed at you, Dr. Leslie, so they were directed as in a metaphysical, more or less, situation. But I have a couple that we can throw at Scott, and maybe he can help. And here's one for sure he can help with. And this is from Mara. And Mara asks, I'm still struggling to find a job. My husband is struggling with OCD. I am by his side going through it with him. When am I going to get out of this lost and down feeling?
So how can she transform how she's looking at it, and maybe even help for her husband as well?
She's asking a difficult question, and it may be something she's going to need somebody to help her with to get out of that. But I think the first and the simplest thing I would tell anybody is there's great power in writing things out. The neuroscientists now have told us that when we write things out in our own handwriting, we have a tendency to believe them to be true. And one of the exercises I have my clients do for their homework is I have them write out how they want their life to be. Exactly the way they want it to be. Moving towards what they want, not writing out negative, like saying, no, I don't want to have OCD anymore, but saying how they would want to be if they didn't have it. And write it out and make it rich in detail and things you would see and things that you would hear and things that you would feel. Like you're writing a great novel. The more detail you can write it out, the greater the impact it will have on your mind. And then what I would do is every night before I go to bed, as I'm lying in bed, I would read that paragraph I wrote out and then allow myself to go to sleep on it. And what you're doing is you're sending a message to your subconscious mind as you're falling asleep. And your subconscious mind is awake all night. It never sleeps. It's up 24/7. So give it something to play with other than random thoughts. And begin to focus your attention and spend a few minutes every day just focusing on that beautiful novel you've written of your life. Because you'll find that the things you write out now become your future reality.
And Mara, I might use different words, but I'd tell you the same thing pretty much, because it's all, I might talk about your vibration and how what you're holding within your vibrational field is an attraction point. And so what you want to do is you want to alter that vibrational field by letting go of any unfocused thoughts, and also focus on raising your vibrational frequency and on becoming a match for what it is that you're wanting to attract into your life. So thank you very much for giving your perspective on that, Scott. And Corey, do you have another question?
Yes, just a quick question on that. So would you call that self-hypnosis in a way, Dr. Scott? Scott?
You could call it a form of self-hypnosis. Anytime you get to invoke the creative part of your mind, you're entering the realm of your subconscious mind. And you can be fully awake and be in a hypnotic state. Athletes perform that way when they're in the zone. The zone state for an athlete is a fully awake, relaxed, hypnotic state where they're able to control what's going on around them. So yes, for somebody spending some time and focusing their energy, and if you think about it, if you're focusing on what you want when you go to sleep at night, what are you doing? As you're falling asleep, you're entering alpha, and then you're going down to theta. You're entering a dream-like hypnotic state and feeding a message to your mind. So I guess the answer to your question is yes, it is a form of self-hypnosis.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I have another question for you here from Sharon. And again, this was originally directed at Dr. Leslie, but I think you could maybe shed a little light on this as well. And Sharon says, I could ask about moving in with Bruce in Duncan in July. I keep getting that I need to move there, but I've experienced a lot of hesitation.
Okay. And you said moving in with Bruce in Duncan, because it sounded a bit like moving in with Bruce and Duncan.
Moving in with Bruce in Duncan.
Duncan
which
is a place.
Is a place in British Columbia here.
And so she's...
my opinion would be, for somebody like that, is the hesitation maybe something she should be listening to, or is the hesitation just fear of the unknown? And the only way you're really going to be able to sort that out is to find a quiet place to spend some time with yourself and just focus on your breathing and just relax and really spend some time and wait for the answer to come to you, because to force an answer is not going to be the real answer. It's your ego getting in the way and telling you what you want to hear. And so you really need to decide, is it something you shouldn't be doing, which is why you're getting the hesitation, or is it just fear of doing something new? And spend some time in quiet contemplation, focusing on breathing slowly. As Dr. you would say, you're really inducing a meditative state, and just allow that flow of the universe to flow through you to look for the answer that you want to get.
Yeah, and I would absolutely is, if you can spend some time where you turn within, let go of all the external signals, you do have your own answers within you. And usually what I do on the show, Scott, is I will go into an altered state of consciousness called a trance and read the person's energy. And I'm seeing in this case that your intuition, Sharon, is, on the one hand, you're wanting to create a situation where you've got this close relationship going on, but on the other hand, your intuition is giving you some information about this. And so I'm actually seeing out of the two possibilities that it could be that Scott was talking about is it's not fear. It's like this is something you want, but I'm actually seeing that there's something in terms of the relationship that you're holding back from with this other person. So I could go into more detail, but I think we'll ask another question.
We could do that. Now, these are the type of questions we get a lot of, Scott, and I sort of bulk them into one sort of question for you. Maybe you can share your light on. And this question is from Myra. And Myra says, my question is, should I start looking to relocate and start my business? In other words, a lot of people want to know if they should make that move into a new business or a new career. And there's such hesitation about it. There's a lot of quandaries going on, you know. What would you say to someone like this?
Well, one, it's not for me to decide whether they should or shouldn't make that decision to go into a business. I think what they need to do is, again, in contemplation, is it their own limiting values and beliefs that are preventing them from making that change? Or is it their ego only wanting them to do it? It's really the wrong decision. And I don't think that's a question I could really answer for somebody. I think they need to spend some time with themselves.
But one thing,
spending some time working on themselves and they have to make that decision for themselves.
You're absolutely right, Scott. One thing that I find though is that people often do not know what is the difference between my ego and my brain and me, the higher consciousness. People actually get very confused about that. What's my intuition and what's my ego? Which one is the truth? Which one is the voice to listen to? And so I think, what you said is right, but how can we help people be discerning about, because remember we started the conversation about the two voices inside you. How can we help people be discerning about which is the intuitive voice or the higher consciousness voice versus which is the ego voice?
Well, it takes practice and time. Because what happens is we get an intuitive feeling, and then the first thing we start to do is we start to think about it, and we start to question it and analyze it, which is the ego or your conscious mind really getting in the way.
Right.
So what happens is you get a thought, or you get a premonition, or you get something from your instincts and your intuition, and then we manipulate it into a conscious thought, and then it becomes wrong. And it's letting yourself go with that feeling. So when you get a feeling inside of you, you get that gut feeling, go with it. See where it takes you. Don't analyze it. Don't judge it. Just go with it and see how it manifests inside of your head and let it happen. And I don't know if that makes sense to people, but we do that for everything. The first thing we want to do is we want to judge and analyze every thought that comes into our head. And when you're getting a gut feeling and an instinct and your intuition is talking to you, just listen. Don't speak to it. Don't question it. Just see what happens.
Great.
So that's the only way you're really going to get what's really coming through. That's the real part of you that's talking to you, as opposed to you analyzing it with a critical mind, and now you're clouding and judging based on your value and belief system of whether it's good or bad.
Exactly. Thank you. Now, unfortunately, we're at the end of the show, so before we say goodbye, I want, how can our listeners get in touch with you? How can they find out more about you and what you do?
Well, people can get a hold of me on my website, and my website is www.ultimatevisionarymind.com. And you can contact me through there. My phone number's in there. There's some great stories from clients in there, and that's probably the best way you can reach me.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute delight. I've enjoyed talking to you so much, and your perspective on all of this. It's wonderful. Unfortunately, we have to go. Thank you, Scott. Bye.
Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips. For more information, go to our website at dr LesliePhillips.com. That's drlesliephillips.com. Where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. Come back again.